This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Welcome back again to today's episode 153. So the final episode of this 4-part series of takeaway messages and celebrational episodes linked to the fact that we've made it to 150. And again, we go back into our archives, this time with a focus on rugby. So we've had former players, internationals, coaches, mental performance coaches and psychologists all involved in rugby in some sort of way, sharing some amazing insights into helping you improve your mental strength or to help you improve the way you integrate mental skills into supporting your clients or players. Feel free to listen. Really sincerely hope you enjoy it.
I'd almost tie them into the advice I'd give them would be what I've seen from high performers, what we've spoken about. I think as a youngster, just focus on what you can control and that is all the small things. If you start breaking it down, there's so many things that you can control that can help you, your sleep, your diet, the way you train, the way you analyze, training and games and how you take on feedback. There's so many things that you can control, because I see a lot of youngsters, they worry about when they first arrive, they worry about what the coach thinks. They worry about what the senior players think. They worry about what, are they going to get selected? And that's, at the end of the day, that's very much out of your control. You can't control what someone is going to think of you, but you can control how you train, which might affect what they think of you. That you can control how a good teammate you are. That'll affect how the senior players think of you. All these things, you can't maybe affect the result, but you can affect the whole process. So I'd definitely say one big thing for me is focus on the controllables. I'd just say, don't worry, don't look too big picture, especially when you're young. Just get in, do the work, and just try get better every single day. Just try get better every single session. And there's going to be a lot of sessions where you don't get better, where you have a bit of a shocker. We all do. You have loads of them. But just put it down to experience, put it down to, okay, how do I learn from that? Always, I'd say actually to put that into one thing is just constantly learn, just constantly be learning the whole time. And just, if you're lucky enough to be in an amazing setup in a top club, then, learn from the best players. One thing I've known about top performers is they've always got time for youngsters. If youngsters generally go to them and say, look, I want to work on my kicking, I want to work on my tackling, I want to work on my lineouts. Top performers who, they've always got time for that. They're always willing to help. And that's just golden stuff that you can just learn. And the third point I'd say would be have balance. I'd say definitely have balance, across the board. Yes, being a professional rugby player is amazing, and playing in big games and playing against best teams is amazing. But just have that balance within your life of, it doesn't have to be studying, doesn't have to be anything formal, but just have that balance of something to go to outside of rugby, whether that be a hobby, whether that be a group of friends that you can just go to, organize a coffee or organize a lunch and just go there and just completely switch off for 2 or 3 hours. But I definitely think as a youngster, throughout your whole career, I think there has to be balance there. When there's not balance, then, because inevitably it's not going to go to plan. Even if you're the best player in the world, some of the best players in the world, you still get injured. You still have drop of form. You still have, maybe you're playing well, but the team's doing badly. All these kind of things. You have COVID, seasons get shut down. And if there's no balance there and that gets taken away from you, I see a lot of players, they're a bit lost, and they're a bit, maybe turn to things that aren't conducive to development. And, and that's where a little bit of friction starts. So I think definitely find balance, and it can be anything. It can literally be anything, but find something outside of rugby. And I think if you focus on those 3 things, I think you're on the right path, definitely.
Well, I think that the overriding one for me is understanding the power of mental toughness. Like I say, I've seen this work in education, working in a school in an area of high deprivation, and the power that developing mental toughness can have. So I think the first thing is about the power and harnessing the power of developing mental toughness. Secondly, I think it's about understanding the culture of an organization and the features of the culture of that organization. Like I said previously, it's when we work with our clients through positive synergy, it's all about what are the trademark behaviors and can we identify them. And actually, when we're working with people on mental toughness, it's about how can they show that every day? What can that trademark be? And ensuring that's part of the work on a daily basis. So it's being clear on what your habits are, I think, and those habits of the mind as well, as part of that. And thirdly, I think for me, it's a huge thing about perception of challenge. And again, we've talked through all sorts of things during the podcast about being injured and kind of response to the pandemic. And I think one of the biggest things for people to take away is kind of how you perceive challenge, and there are always challenging times, whatever you're doing, aren't there? And it's kind of about, those people who are mentally tough kind of embracing that challenge and seeing it as an opportunity rather than seeing it as a threat. And I think it's really important that people kind of will consider, what can I benefit out of this rather than thinking straight away because it's a challenge, something's a bad thing.
Yeah, I'd probably would be three things. That top of my head would be number one, they don't learn like you did. So that's the number one thing coaches need to understand. So they don't learn the way you did. So their learning will be very, very different. You got to be flexible as a coach. They don't have to be flexible as a learner.
Yeah. So they've all got different learning styles. Yeah.
Yeah. And even the idea around how, some learn through experience, for example, not even like the style of learning, like the journey of learning. Like some learn quickly and apply quickly, but don't own it deep enough and it collapses under pressure. Others are slow burners, but through experience, they begin to own something. So yeah, not just about the style of learning, but I think the journey of learning is everyone's a little bit different. The second thing is that you have to earn the right to be honest with athletes. And I think, the analogy I use is you've got to build a bridge of trust to drive over a truck of honesty. And if you don't care for your players in this generation, you will have no impact in what they're doing. So, my model of it, a very simple model is create connection in order to earn trust so I can have impact. There's no impact without connection. That's like, who are you? Where's your family from? And I've been around coaches. I remember one cricket coach I worked with, they would retweet everything about how much he cared and da-da-da. And I said, how much do you know about the life of your players? None. It was an idea, but it wasn't a reality. And then I think the final thing, which I think coaches have got to understand, it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is players are not going to sacrifice. No, let me put it this way. Here's a better way of putting it. Players will choose their experience in the environment over loyalty to a club or a jersey. And that's changed.
Yeah.
And you got to realize that. So meaning, like, I grew up in Celtic Rugby Club. I probably had some of the worst coaches in history like you would have growing up. I had no option of leaving Celtic Rugby Club. You're there till you die.
Yeah.
Regardless of, but players will go, if I am not I'm not enjoying it here, if the environment's rubbish, if it's a bit toxic, you can't hold out this thing called loyalty to a jersey and expect me to stay. I'm out. So, like that trump card of jersey loyalty has now been replaced by experience in the environment. And a coach has got to recognize that.
Well, first and foremost, it's a classic response from any sportsman, but it is enjoy it. I wouldn't be here now if I didn't enjoy it. And I know at times where I've not really enjoyed it. To be honest, you have ups and downs in your career. There are times you're thinking, I might just pack this in, but then you remember that you're not able to do anything else because you're too old to change sports and you're not clever enough to get a good job. So you're like, okay, I'll best do this. So yeah, enjoy it really. I think I'm playing with a smile on your face. And then two, I think just work at the fundamentals of the game, and work hard at them. I think it's a classic thing, but I have seen so many people with so much talent who haven't made it purely because their eye got caught by something else, or they preferred a social life, or they had more friends than I did. They had all girls liked them when they were younger, and they didn't like me. So all that sort of stuff. And then I think, you put together the enjoyment and the hard work. And then I think the thing with me is, and it is what we're talking about now, is just get your mental prep right. Just if you're going to enjoy it and you're happy to work hard, then just make sure you don't feel pressured and stressed by it. Find a release for it. If that's to go and do something else, to play something else, whatever. Because it's easy to say enjoy it, because ultimately, I still remember the pressure playing under-8s rugby or under-9s rugby, because we were playing the final and we wanted to win. That was pressure in itself. Yes, it was exciting, but I was nervous. And that's it, and I think that's it. Make sure you're doing other things and play up to other sports to make sure that if you do come to rugby or you do go to tennis or whatever it may be that you prefer, that it's enjoyable and there's a crossover and you're playing lots of different things. So for me, it's hard work, play different sports and just enjoy it. Like I don't think I've ever. There are times where rugby players are quite sappy in the changing room. That was a rubbish session. That was crap. Or they were moaning, and I'm a part of it. But if you wouldn't be there if you didn't enjoy it, and that's the biggest thing.
Well, firstly, I'd say you have to have an amazing work ethic if you want to strive to get to the top, wherever that is. And you have to really dedicate yourself to your craft. There are no shortcuts in life. You have to work hard, and your work ethic has to be up there. It's got to be up there with the best for you to become one of the best. So that, I would say, that would be the first thing. Work ethic is paramount importance. The second thing I would say is give your industry the respect it deserves, as I said. And that just means that you need to put the effort in. You need to actually, for you to become expert in your industry, or as a coach, or as a sports coach, or an athlete, or a business coach, you have to work on your craft. Just like the best musicians, the best sportsmen, best sportswomen, all that kind of stuff. They really, really work at their craft, and they dedicate time and effort to actually becoming better. So giving the industry the respect it deserves is really important. You can't just turn up and think, I want to be X, Y, and Z, and it's all going to happen. Sure, people have a lot of talent in certain areas, but it goes to waste if they still don't give the industry or give their craft the respect it deserves. So that would be the second thing. And then the third thing I would say is anything's possible, but you have to think it's possible for it to happen.
I would say probably the first thing is that, believe in yourself in terms of that you're good enough to be the best that you can be in whichever sport. Obviously with this, with myself, it was rugby. Although, I grew up playing basketball because my whole family were playing basketball. Unfortunately, I didn't go any further with basketball, but I was able to still have the same attitude, still have the same vision to try and play at the top of that sport. But I made the switch to a different sport. They say, that the goal is something that will probably always stay the same, but how you get there will always have different avenues and may change in that. And that's exactly what happened for myself in there. Secondly, I'll be, surround yourself with people who are chasing similar goals, or people that have positive attitude about their own outlooks in life and them looking to aim for the best that they can be. And lastly, don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's in your game or whether it's in anything in life. I think people will certainly think that it used to be thought of that looking for help or asking for help is a weakness. More and more people now who are looking for help, you see a lot of people who are very successful. They're very successful because they asked for help.
Concentrate on what you're doing, what you love. There's always going to be someone there behind you to put you down, but it's whether or not you listen to them, whether or not you let their words put you down, or whether you take them on the chin and think, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. Kind of try and use that negativity as motivation to keep going and keep doing what you love, because there's always going to be someone younger aspiring to be where you are.
Just understand the player a bit, their motivations, their expectations, all of that sort of stuff. So definitely get to understand them. What's important to you as a team? Obviously, the players need to be part of it. So, like, how do we roll? That sort of like environmental, culture piece. So that's this is the these are the this is the stuff that matters. I think it'll give clarity. It'll give people boundaries. And then it would be the last piece we've probably mentioned, really. I think it's it starts with care and love. And then you can definitely get into high challenge. Like I'd probably, some of the players I've dealt with in the past, like we would have like really high challenge. They'd be trying some amazing stuff and doing amazing stuff, and be like sort of getting better pretty quickly around the challenge stuff. But it was based on high support and high care at the appropriate times.
So mental toughness is a psychological attribute that there is a genetic component, but it can be developed. So that's kind of the first thing. Secondly, we know it can be developed by exposing athletes to pressure, but not just exposing to pressure. You've actually got to teach them strategies to manage the pressure. So strategies that they can perform under, strategies that they can use when they're under pressurized situations. And finally, and I suppose another take-home message would be that when we're, as a coach, as a psychologist, when working with athletes of different ages, is not to treat them all the same. Just because a high-level professional player may experience certain types of stresses, it doesn't mean to say that, you know, a player even in the same position at a different age group will experience those same stresses. So it's about knowing the athlete, but also knowing about some of the age demographics and some of the factors that may influence how they're feeling. By engaging in those factors, I think as coaches, psychologists, we can really enhance the well-being of athletes.
So what was your favourite takeaway message today? What resonated with you? You know, feel free to let me know via email at info@sport-excellence.co.uk or through one of the social media channels. And I'd also love to know your thoughts on moving the podcasts forward. What sort of topics? What sort of guests? Who would you like to hear from? Please do get in touch. Please do let me know. And finally, again, I'd like to say a big thank you to the guests who've played a part in the creation of this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast. Without the guests, we wouldn't have a podcast. So big thank you. I'm very, very grateful. And again, to you, the listener, I'm very grateful for you listening to my ramblings as well as some of these fantastic interviews. Next week, we're going to be back with a short solo episode setting the scene for the coming months. I hope you tune in and I hope you enjoy it. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport